So for today's video, I would once again like to take a look at some of the more meaningful interactions that DSP has had throughout the past week, because the way that he interacts with his chat is always fascinating to me as somebody who also streams sometimes. The things that he says and the reactions that he has seem so foreign to me, and I'll never understand why these people continue to stick around. And for a little bit of context on the first clip, this is when DSP heard through the game's media that Stalker 2 was going to come out in September and have 100 hours worth of content. And of course, he was not excited to hear this news.
100+ hour games don't work on DSP Gaming. I already made this statement when I finished Baldur's Gate 3. I said I'm probably not playing a lengthy game like this for a very, very long time. So I'm not saying I wouldn't give it a shot. Like I said, it's free on Game Pass. I mean, I have Game Pass. I love Game Pass. I don't see why I wouldn't try it.
Probably for the same reason that you don't try out other games that are on Game Pass that people are constantly asking you to try out. Because you don't have any time. It's not a AAA title and your audience just isn't interested in it. So why would I waste my time, dude? At least that's the reason that you usually give. I really don't know what's all that different in this instance. But hey, if I can watch DSP fail at Stalker 2 for at least a little bit, I'm all for it. Because if the new one is anything like the old ones, he's going to be completely out of his depth and not know what he's doing.
I mean, even if I like it a bit, maybe I would play it for a while. But it's insanely unlikely you're going to see me invest 100 hours. The good news is, because this is a Game Pass game, it means I don't have any investment in it. I could play it for 10, 15, 20 hours, and if I get bored of it, we can just say, okay, that was enough, and we can move on to other games. And I don't have to feel guilty. I don't have to feel like I wasted money. I can just say, all right, that's fine. So I think that's how I'm going to approach it. I'll probably try it, but I probably won't beat it.
If feeling guilty and wasting money on a game is something that DSP was genuinely concerned about, you would have thought by now he would have quit WWE Champions. You also would have thought that he would have brought that same mentality to Baldur's Gate 3 when the time arose. Because just to remind you, he didn't pay for that game either. He made thousands of dollars off of a game that he didn't even pay for. It was gifted to him by one of his dents. He's definitely made it clear by now that he doesn't have any intention of treating any of the dents with any sort of respect. So again, I'm just confused as to why he didn't bring that same mentality to Baldur's Gate 3, a game that he very clearly did not enjoy, and apparently was causing the death of his channel. Oh no.
Okay? And I'm just going to let that be known for other games moving forward. Any game that's 60, 80, 100 hour games. I'm not going to approach it with the mindset that I'm committing to beat it, because it's just too much. It literally kills the channel when I do that. Too much. So there you have it. Okay? There you go.
So there you have it, folks. Games that have a significant amount of content that people are usually excited to experience, DSP will no longer be playing. Sorry, in-depth game mechanics and story just need to be thrown out the window so that the guy can beat the game in 10 to 15 hours maximum. But fortunately for us, this is where the fun begins. This is where the chill, meaningful interaction happens.
Haley, you're absolutely in-fucking correct, and if you ever say something like that again, I will ban you from the chat. They said, Baldur's Gate 3 carried this channel for these months. Like a Dragon is what killed it. Like a Dragon was played like 2 to 3 times a week on a late stream when already we have low attendance. Baldur's Gate 3 was what killed the viewership on this channel. No one was watching the videos on demand whatsoever, and it was a small group of very big fans of it that were supporting the streams, but it killed the viewership on this channel overall. This channel has been down for 3 months. Don't ever fucking lie again because you're fanboying out about Baldur's Gate 3. The facts are the fucking facts. All right? Cut the shit.
How ironic that the man that is completely delusional and has fell for his own pignosis throughout the past decade is telling other people that the facts are the facts. And the very idea that Baldur's Gate 3 killed the channel and Like a Dragon had nothing to do with it is part of that delusion. It's part of that very pignosis. How many times has DSP told us that ad revenue really isn't worth anything and that it's not about the on-demand views that he cares about, but instead the support that he gets on the streams? Yet here we are talking about how nobody was watching the videos on demand for Baldur's Gate 3. The guy was basically hitting the $100 tips goal on every single Baldur's Gate 3 stream, while Like a Dragon was struggling to bring in $5. And if you're really gonna sit here and complain about the amount of people that are watching the videos on demand, Like a Dragon didn't do all that well either. Who the hell was watching that playthrough? There were often times that Dents would show up and throw him a couple of dollars. He would thank them for watching the playthrough, and they would straight up tell him that they weren't watching the playthrough and that they were actually going to leave because they weren't interested in the game. How many more different ways do you need people to show you that they didn't care about about that game and that it was only for you. But of course, the reason that he hates Baldur's Gate 3 so much, aside from all of the sexual content that he doesn't care for because he's an absolute weirdo, is because Baldur's Gate 3 is the exact opposite experience. BG3 was only for his audience. He didn't care to play it at all. So of course he's going to be upset and salty for all of eternity that the game that he actually enjoyed got no attention, while the game he had no interest in did buku bucks.
People are just so one track minded because they think, oh, well, people came in and tipped during your streams. Yes, but overall, this channel has suffered. It lost about 1/3 of its ongoing viewership. I want to repeat that. 1/3 of the people who used to come to this channel to watch me play games left during the months of January, February, and March when I was playing Baldur's Gate 3 because they didn't care about the game, and it was the one thing that I was majorly playing more than anything else. They just dipped. And I'm waiting for them and hoping they're going to come back as I'm doing variety again. You understand?
But what difference does it make to you, DSP, where that money is coming from? Why does it matter whether it's through large contributions on a Baldur's Gate 3 stream or ad revenue from videos on demand? And how pathetic do you have to be to say that you're waiting for your audience to come back around because you're finally doing variety again? Obviously, you should treat your audience well and you should try and do the content that they want to see. But to say that you're actively waiting for them to come back, I don't know, man. I would just be embarrassed saying that.
I can't have a channel be a 140-hour endeavor and lose 1/3 of my audience because people are bored. All right? So we can now cut the shit and stop, sugarcoating it. That's what happened. I wasn't playing Like a Dragon for 12 hours a week. I was playing it for like 4 hours a week.
Are you sure about that, DSP? Because I very distinctly remember, what was it, 2 weeks straight where you played nothing but Baldur's Gate 3 on the day stream and Like a Dragon on the night stream? Your night streams are 3 hours apiece. If you were playing it 6 days a week for 3 hours, that definitely adds up to more than 12 hours. And I want to remind you that Like a Dragon was not making almost any money when it came to those streams. But I love the way that he said it, that we could stop sugarcoating it and we can cut the shit. Implying that before he was taking it easy on Baldur's Gate 3 and was not giving you his true feelings on the situation. But now that the game's over, of course we can shit on it. There's no money to be lost now. He made all of the money that he was going to make off of it, so it's finally time to tell you how he really feels about the game.
So you're full of it. And I'm tired of this whole straw manning and scapegoating shit needs to stop. Of people trying to blame a game that literally had nothing to do with it. It 100% was Baldur's Gate 3. Now that doesn't mean the game is bad. That means it doesn't fit my format, as I said when I skipped it in September of last year.
Well, Phil, strawmanning and scapegoating are not the same thing, so you can't use them interchangeably like that. That's not how that works. And I could understand if he wanted to argue that it was part Baldur's Gate 3's fault and part Like a Guy's fault, and it was RPG burnout and all of that normal shit that he says. But to say that it was 100% Baldur's Gate 3, how are you going to blame the only game that was making you any sort of money? That just doesn't make any sense to me. You'd think that he would be appreciative that Baldur's Gate 3 was around during that time. It gave him a way to justify playing Like a Dragon, a game that was again making him no goddamn money.
That's also why, as I approach a game like Stalker 2, I'm telling you, I am absolutely not committing to doing a full playthrough. I will try it out. It's on Game Pass. But if we get tired of it, if I see that there's a negative pattern on this channel, I'm going to stop playing it. And we're going to move on and do other things. Okay? Fair enough.
You gotta love how he uses the term negative pattern, which is incredibly vague and leaves the door open to DSP quitting a playthrough whenever he feels like it. Which, if he wants to quit a game at any point during his stream, he absolutely can. It's his stream, it's his decision, and if he doesn't want to play the game anymore, then he just shouldn't. But he doesn't have to be a dickhead about it, and he doesn't have to give these weird, vague criteria that a game has to meet in order for him to continue playing it. And if it really did come to how much money he was making per stream, and that's why he was quitting a game, he should just be upfront and honest about it and tell everybody that he is wage quitting. Well, that's still very disgraceful and shows you where his real interests lie. I'd have to give him at least a little big ups for not wasting everybody's time and beating around the bush as to the real reason why he's quitting the game.
And if you lie about it and try to scapegoat it and strawman it and make up bullshit, you won't be in my chat anymore, because I hate people who want to fucking try to do that shit because they don't want to fess up to fucking reality. All right? Baldur's Gate 3 is a great game. It doesn't work for everyone. It certainly did not work for my audience. Okay?
I gotta ask, at this point, what games do work for your audience, DSP? Because they're few and far between at this point. I'm genuinely trying to remember the last game that your audience actually enjoyed and you weren't complaining about. I was going to say Alone in the Dark, but once it went to the night stream, you were complaining that nobody was showing up and it was slow. So even that's off the table. Are we really gonna have to go as far back as your first Elden Ring playthrough to be the game that your dents actually enjoyed last? Something tells me if they don't enjoy that many games in a row that maybe it has nothing to do with the game and everything to do with the person that they're watching play the game. It's just an idea.
Okay, goodbye to this person. I've had enough. I'm just not going to say nothing anymore. I'm just going to ban these people outright. Okay. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Get rid of the morons. That way I can focus on the rest of my show. Okay. Good. Continuing on.
Banning people in the chat is the exact sort of thing that comes to mind when I think of chill and meaningful interaction. Sound good? Sounds good to me. And by the way, categories.
Oh, is that what it is? Someone is saying, listen to this. When he's talking about a financial analyst, I believe he's talking about a troll. He makes videos tracking the amount of tips and super chats that you get with a spreadsheet. That's hilarious. Here's why that's hilarious, okay?
And before he starts to explain why that's absolutely hilarious, I love how he's getting upset because somebody in chat was saying that someone else said a detractor meme. Obviously, my first question is, how would that person know what these detractor memes are? How would they know that there is a detractor who is keeping track of all of DSP's tips? Why are they running in these circles? Why are they keeping tabs on these people? And why are they bringing it to DSP's attention? Why aren't they just ignoring it like he constantly tells them to? And the paranoia that's required to be upset about someone in your chat saying that somebody else is referencing a detractor who keeps track of your finances. There's like 3 degrees of separation there between you and the actual detractor. How are you going to be upset about this? It's like he's looking for things to be upset about. For some reason, that's what he wants to do. He wants to get upset about these things.
Number one, you have absolutely no concept of how much money I make whatsoever. When you go to one of those things like Social Blade, it's completely wrong. That website has never tracked anyone's income properly at all. I can tell you firsthand because I go there and I look at it and I'm like, that's not even close. And it never has been.
Well, DSP's absolutely right on this one. People have been saying this for years. Social Blade doesn't actually know what anybody makes on the internet, especially given the kind of sponsorship deals and whatnot that go on now. Also, the range in which they provide on Social Blade is kind of ridiculous. I went on my own not that long ago just because I was curious and I genuinely forgot that Social Blade had even existed. And on the higher end, they were saying that I was making $50,000 a month. I assure everybody in the audience right now, I do not make $50,000 a month on YouTube, and nowhere close to that. That's absolutely ridiculous, and I promise you if I was making $50,000 a month, I definitely wouldn't be playing in trash for a living. So like I said, DSP is right. Social Blade has no idea what they're talking about.
So you can't believe those websites, okay? If you're trying to track tips, you have no concept of how many tips I make. Because yes, I do get chargebacks all the time. No, I don't publicly talk about them because it's no one's business and there's no reason to talk about it. It's just a natural thing that happens in the course of being a creator. Yeah, a lot of the tips that you see publicly end up being charged back, and there's nothing I can do about it. Sometimes you fight them, sometimes you don't, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. It's just part of the grind of being a streamer.
Definitely not a good look for a content creator to be referring to the content that they make as a grind. That definitely doesn't make anybody want to watch your content. It doesn't make them feel appreciated, and in fact, it might be off-putting. It might make them feel like a burden. That aside, this is yet another instance of DSP flip-flopping. But this definitely isn't the first time that he's flip-flopped when it came to the amount of chargebacks that he gets and whether or not he wins them. Because for a very long time, he was telling everybody that he wins every single chargeback and that they were wasting their time. And then every once in a while, he would tell everybody that you win some, you lose some. And then when it was really desperate for money, he was saying that the chargebacks were hitting heavy and that he was losing like all of them and he was down way bad. So which one is it, DSP? Do you win all of them? Do you lose all of them? Or is it somewhere in the middle? And while I'm sure that he does get his fair share of chargebacks, it comes with the territory of being DSP. I genuinely think that if it was a problem, if he was being hit by a lot of them or he was losing a significant amount of the chargebacks, that we would be hearing about it. Because that's a crisis that he absolutely would not let go to waste. Imagine the amount of begging, the amount of funds that could be raised if he was telling everybody that he was losing a bunch of chargebacks and wasn't going to be able to pay his bills, or buy the next game, or do the next feasting with Phil. The guy doesn't need a reason to beg, but if he's given one, he absolutely will use it.
Okay? So you can count every single dollar as if I get it. I don't. There's also a ton of fees and things involved with every single transaction. I don't get everything you see. When someone does a super chat, I don't get that whole super chat. It's not like on Twitch, where on Twitch you get all the bits. You don't get all of that in a super chat. If someone did a $5 super chat right now, I only get a cut of that. I don't get all of it.
But people by now are well aware of the percentage that YouTube is taking DSP. They can just take that into consideration when they track all of their super chats. It's not really all that complicated. And it's the exact same story when it comes to the PayPal fees. All of these things could definitely be taken into consideration when tracking these numbers. If, of course, a detractor wants to represent them accurately, which I do genuinely believe that if a detractor is going out of their way to get all of these numbers and track all of these things, that they would represent it as accurate as possible. Because the very second that the numbers are represented inaccurately is the second that they lose all credibility. Nobody holds detractors more accountable than other detractors. Also, I'm seeing it in chat right now, so I guess I gotta give a big shout out to Avarice, who said what I said. I thought we never lost chargebacks. Just going to prove my point that at some point DSP was telling everybody that he was winning all of these chargebacks, and it wasn't something that he was concerned about.
So tracking it means absolutely nothing. You don't know shit. You're just an idiot. You're wasting your fucking life because you're a loser. All right? So all these morons who believe they know what they're talking about, they don't know what they're talking about. They're just moronic, okay? So that's why you don't pay attention to any of the bullshit that they do online, because it's a waste of everyone's time, including theirs. They're only trying to stir up drama. They're trying to act like they know something that they don't, and they could get fucked. Really, like they could screw themselves because they're just a waste of everyone's life.
Well, that wasn't very DS positive. And at least these people are doing something productive. They're using Excel spreadsheets and tracking numbers and keeping their brain occupied. DSP's brain, on the other hand, is atrophied at this point due to how little he actually uses it. But I guess when you pull Hogan's for 7 years straight, that'll happen to you because it doesn't require a lot of brain power to do that. And the gin that's totally not in any of those water bottles isn't helping his case either.
So, if this really is detractor shit, I don't care about those people, okay? BB Phil, I'm not saying that's what you were referencing. I'm talking about this person someone's talking about. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about idiots like this who do this kind of shit.
But this absolutely was in relation to a BB Phil chat interaction that had happened. He had mentioned something about his top financial analysis guy, and then somebody in the chat had convinced you that he was referencing a detractor. Have you forgotten already what just happened 2 minutes ago? The speed at which he can memory hold things is truly a sight to behold.
That, you know, for years and years and years, these idiots say, oh, I know exactly what DSP makes and this and that. You don't know shit, man. You really don't. I said right now, my memberships, they're completely shot. You know, my memberships got destroyed when all the fake ones started coming in January. And quite frankly, I'm way down. Like I said, as of the other day, I only had about 300 memberships on the channel. Legit.
And I just want to let everybody know that there's no actual way for DSP to check how many of these memberships are legit. Legit being in air quotes, obviously. There's no tool on YouTube that actually allows you to see where any of these memberships were purchased from. So DSP is just giving, I guess, his best guesstimation. And if you ask me, if you're going to cry victim, you better have some hard numbers to come with. I'm not just going to believe a best guesstimation from a known liar. 100%, a lot of people have Argentinian memberships on DSP's channel. There's no arguing that. But if you're going to give us a specific number, 300, then there better be something to back it up. If not, you're just guessing, and I'm not interested in hearing your guess. Not that he should even be bringing it up anyway, because all he's doing is drawing attention to it. And the more he talks about it, the more he lets people know that it gets under his skin and that it does actually affect his business, and the more they're gonna do it. It's like he's asking to be beaten up by all of these Argentinians, dude. I don't understand.
And, you know, I went from having anywhere from 700 to 800 regular legit memberships to 300 because of that. Like, that, you know how much that hurts me? A ton. You know, that hurts me significantly. And that's not something I'm not getting back right now. You know, it's going to probably take months and months to try to build that back. I can't ever put a leaderboard of saying how many members I have, because at any moment someone could try to gift fake ones and that skews the number and it's meaningless. You know what I'm saying? So...
And I don't think that I have to tell most of you guys, but for those of you who don't know, DSP's membership numbers were not genuinely 700 to 800 members a month. A lot of those were gifted, although they were gifted with real US currency instead of that totally fake Argentinian currency that is not real at all, I promise. Like I said, I'm sure most of you are aware of that, but for anybody who was thinking, geez, 700 to 800 members on DSP Space Gaming, that sounds a little high. It absolutely was. It was due to the whales gifting memberships to people who had no interest in getting them.
You know, that's what I mean. People, oh, I know what he makes. No, you don't. You don't know anything. You're just a fucking idiot. Mouth drooler. A fucking loser. Go do something positive with your life for once. Really. If this is what you're doing with your time, here's what you should do. Go make a ham sandwich and go give it to the homeless. Go donate at a fucking soup kitchen your time to help people. Go clean up yards. Go clean up litter. Do something. Because if you have this much free time, you could be helping the world, but instead you're being a scumbag on the internet and you're wasting your time and being toxic to everyone around you. You're a waste of life. Go do something with your life. Okay.
And now that we've hit peak toxicity with this meaningful interaction, let's move on to the last one. I promise it'll be far less toxic.
Oh, another super chat came in. Hold on, because my screen is frozen. I'm going to go to live chat so I can actually see all the messages. Big Boss did another super chat. He says, what was the last Ultimate Collector's Edition game you actually thought was worth or cool? Oh, God. See, I couldn't answer that because basically I stopped buying the collector's editions now because I thought that the stuff in it was shitty. All right. Honestly, a lot of them were. Okay. Let me give backstory. For those who don't know, I've been around for 16 years. Maybe many of you don't know this context. Okay.
Holy shit, dude. We can't talk about anything without talking about our 16-year legacy, can we? God damn. Just for once, I wanted to talk about a topic that somehow relates to his past where he doesn't say that he either A, used to work at a helicopter company, or B, he's been on the internet for 16 years making content. Just once, please. And all this person asked was, what was the last collector's edition that you bought that you thought was worth your money? And DSP managed to explain that he used to buy collector's editions in the first place, which kind of goes without saying given the question, that he didn't think they were shitty. Well, they actually were shitty. And let me tell you about my legacy. How did he manage to start 3 different trains of thought and none of them actually answered the question?
When I started as a YouTuber and I started making money doing YouTube videos, I started a series of videos called Release Day Unboxing. What this series was is I would go to GameStop and physically buy a game, all right? And then I would unbox it live in a video showing you what the case looked like, what the game looked like, reading the materials, showing you the instruction booklet, whatever else it came with. You know, it was interesting to see what you would get with any particular game.
Wow, who would have thought that the release day unboxing meant that he would buy a game on release and then he would unbox it? I have no idea why that needed to be pig-splained to us, but I guess thanks, DSP. Now that we're all on the same page, can you answer the question?
So originally, I would just do it with the standard game, and the series caught on and people really liked it. So people started asking me, would you get the better edition so that way you have more to show in these videos? So because I was making so much money on YouTube back in the day, I said, sure, why not? I can splurge. I literally was getting every collector's edition possible. Like I got collector's editions of fighting games, RPGs, Call of Duty, you know, racing games. I remember one game I had like this fucking drone or some shit. You know, I had everything, anything you could get. I had an RC car that came with a Call of Duty game.
He spent all of this money on these collector's editions of video games and it doesn't even seem like he gave a shit about what was inside of them. He was just spending money to spend money. Of course, he was justifying it, saying that it was for the content. But the reality is DSP is just a consumer. If he is nothing else, he is that. The guy will just spend money to spend money. Look no further than those goddamn Blu-rays that he spent all of that money on and never watched. And then obviously WWE Champions, but that went without saying. I said it anyway. Deal with it.
So it became this thing. On release day, DSP would have the collector's edition of the game, unbox it, show off all of the content, okay, and then play the game. So that was neat. It was like that unboxing video would upload first before I started playing the game, and it would be a lead into the playthrough that was coming later that day. You'd get excited and hyped for it by watching the unboxing video. People loved it.
As the joke goes, I wasn't alive back then, so I couldn't tell you whether or not people were absolutely eating this content up. But thinking about it now, retroactively, I don't know how anybody could be excited about a game or a game playthrough. By watching this guy's fat, ugly sausage fingers rummaging around in a box and pulling out a bunch of plastic and paper that nobody genuinely gave a shit about. It just seems like a very strange ritual to do before a playthrough. But like I said, I wasn't even alive, so maybe this was all of the rage. Maybe all the cool kids were going to the DSP unboxing before the big playthrough. At least that's what it sounds like if you believe what he says.
It got, no exaggeration, those videos got tens of thousands of views. In some cases, those unboxing videos paid for the game before I ever booted it. So any video I made after was pure profit for me. Okay? Those were the days.
Of course, those were the days when DSP was being paid money hand over fist by YouTube for doing absolutely nothing. That really is the life when you think about it. And he absolutely squandered that opportunity. He was making insane amounts of money and he was throwing it all away. Couldn't have happened to a better guy.
And then what ended up happening was, over time, these game developers decided to stop including good stuff with their games. You would buy a game and you release the unboxing, you open it up. Okay, there's the disc. There's no instruction booklet, no warnings pamphlet, no additional content whatsoever. The box is a bare bones box that barely explains what the game is. Like, release day unboxing, there's nothing to unbox, right? It's the most boring video ever because there's nothing in it. So literally the video series became obsolete on its own as game developers pushed away from putting goodies and interesting things into their physical copies of games.
Now in the modern day, video game developers have moved away from physical copies entirely, and collector's editions are really the only way to get a physical copy of the game and any goodies at all. It's still not worth the money and a bunch of plastic bullshit that you're never going to use, but I'm just saying if this form of content didn't die back then, it definitely would have died by now. Because even if they managed to continue to put all of those goodies inside the game case and all of these collector's editions, as they move further and further from physical copies, you are just going to get less and less of that.
So over that 5-year span that I was doing release day unboxing consistently, dude, I unlocked a ton of unboxed a ton of stuff. I remember like getting an RPG and you open it up and it's got a separate art book with all kinds of concept art and cool art. It's got an additional CD that's the soundtrack. It's got another CD that's like a dev documentary on the making of the game, right? Then it's got codes, DLC codes for in-game content, a skin, a weapon, or whatever. And you could stand there for an hour unboxing this thing because there's so much to look at. Or, getting a deluxe Uncharted and it's a full-scale mini statue of Nathan Drake with a gun accessory and everything you can pose and everything. Like, what the hell? Wow.
I just want to point out that he said full-scale mini statue of Nathan Drake. Well, it can't be mini and full-scale at the same time, DSP. It can be 2-scale, but it cannot be full-scale and mini. I just don't think that that's how those words work. But nitpicking aside, I don't think that there was ever a point where you could spend an hour doing an unboxing, even if you did get the collector's edition of a video game. At that point, you're just wasting time to add padding to the video, which I shouldn't be surprised coming from DSP because that's about all he does at this point. But if you're going to be retelling these stories from your history, at least try and represent them somewhat accurately. He's making it sound as if the developers gave him an entire Christmas worth of gifts in this one box for the collector's edition.
Some really neat stuff that was in some of those. But man, some of them were shit. I remember, I think it was a Splinter Cell game, and it had like a plane, a toy plane. And I was like, what do I do with this? First of all, this isn't like one scene of the game. It's not even like representative of the game. And it's like, why? What is this, and why do I want this? Some of them were just really stupid. But some of them were great, all depended on the game. So what was my favorite? That I can't attest to. I'd have to go back and I would have to watch all the videos and look at all the ones that I ever got and kind of then weigh and balance and compare.
Oh my God, we went through all of that for him to just not answer the question because he would have to watch the videos. This dude can't remember anything that's ever happened to him. And all he's asking is for you to list your favorite. Even if it's not actually your favorite, but the only one that you can remember being cool, like the Nathan Drake statue, then you can just say that. It's not life or death. But it wouldn't be a DSP opinion if we didn't manage to find a way to fence it.
Which, I don't go back and watch my own stuff at all. So I've never gone back and watched the release day unboxings to know what would have been one of the coolest ones. I would have to go do that. Maybe, again, that's something we could do in the future.
Somehow I knew that he was going to find a way to pitch to his audience that they should just watch him unbox a bunch of bullshit. It's just too on brand for DSP to not try, But me personally, I would love to see that stream happen just so we can see exactly how much money DSP was wasting. To see all of the stupid knickknacks and pieces of plastic that would go unused by DSP and go completely to the wayside. Because heaven forbid he actually look into these collector's editions and just purchase the ones that he was actually interested in. He just went crazy and bought all of them because.
I'm now 16 years into this. You realize that? 16 years I've been making content on YouTube. Probably at this point, I'm wondering if I'm up to 100,000 videos or not. I might be at this point. That's a lot of content. And at this point, there's just so much to reminisce about and to have nostalgia over. Maybe that's something we could do one day. Go back and start watching unboxings and see how they were back in the day, right? It was such a different feeling.
Oh, I'm sure it is a different feeling, DSP, because at least back then when you were spending a ridiculous amount of money on video games, you got something for it. You got to make content out of it, and you even got a physical game and probably some knickknacks to go alongside it. Now when you spend a ridiculous amount of money on a game, it's on a mobile game, a WWE mobile game, where you have nothing to show for it and it's all for naught. That's not what I would call robust. But what absolutely is robust is the comments from the last video that I want to take a look at, so shout out the 60 Skulls. Go to Boehm says, the length of that the suggestion should really be an indicator itself. If many people can come up with multiple paragraphs apiece, then you seriously need to change. I would think that that would go without saying. And even if that were the case, you would think that you would look into this, especially if they're all saying the same thing. Because if this many people are complaining about this many things in this volume, something very clearly needs to be done. But that would require effort on DSP's behalf to actually do something to address the problems. And he's not interested in doing that. He just wants the ass pats that come in the suggestion box, not the actual criticisms. Jack Nightmare 1975 says, the fact he screams from the rooftops he works 60 to 70 hours a week, yet can't take a few moments to fix up his OBS? This is insane. Organizing your OBS is the least you could do if you're going to be a full-time streamer. An organized workspace is an efficient workspace. But I'm sure this is no shocker to you. DSP is not interested in being efficient. He's not interested in being organized, and he's most definitely not interested in making good content. The only thing that he's interested in is making money the easiest way possible and LARPing as a real hard-working adult. Which, if you ask me, is just a spit in the face of everybody who does actually work hard for their money. Shout out everybody who's holding down a job and paying their bills. You guys are the real ones and you don't get enough credit. And Hugh Neutron 5303 says, notice how he doesn't mention what webcam he has. This is obviously in reference to him complaining about his webcam not being able to do different resolutions. And if you see other streamers doing things that he can't do, it's because they don't have the same webcam, but he doesn't go on to mention it by name. And that was an intentional choice, if you ask me, not only because he doesn't offhand know the name of his webcam because it was given to him, but he couldn't be bothered to look into it and find the name to give it to people because he doesn't want people to come back and say that he can do all of these things with his webcam. Because the webcam is 100% not the source of the problems that he's having. And for that reason, it was left vague. And I'm actually going to get vague right now by saying I want to give a shout out to everybody who watched the video, especially if you made it this far. Hopefully I'll catch all of you guys in the next video, but until then, make sure that you check out other Detractor content and dive deeper into that. Snortax.